We talk a lot on this podcast about gut health and hormones, but there is this whole other system quietly running in the background that is going to impact all of those things and so much more. And most people have never even heard of it. So, whether you're dealing with puffiness or chronic fatigue, brain fog, skin issues, or you feel like your body is just holding on to fluid and inflammation that it can't get rid of, this episode is going to be very, very beneficial for you. There's actually like double the amount of lymphatic fluid in our body than there is blood. Hello, everybody. Today we're talking about something that I am genuinely very, very excited to dive into. I feel like it is one of our most underrated systems in our entire body. And as I was researching for this podcast, I just felt more and more like that. And I feel like once you understand it, it can really change how you look at your symptoms. And same thing, since I've been diving into it in the last week, it's changed how I'm looking at certain things. We talk a lot on this podcast about gut health and hormones. And of course, those are all very, very important. But there is this whole other system quietly running in the background that is going to impact all of those things and so much more. And most people have never even heard of it. Or if they have, they don't really understand what it does to the full extent. And what I am talking about is our lymphatic system, baby. And today we're going to do a deep dive. Woo! So here's what we're covering today. So we're going to go over what the lymphatic system actually is and how it works, why it matters so much for how you look and feel every single day, signs that yours might be sluggish or congested, and most importantly, a really practical, actionable list of things that you can do to start supporting it. So whether you're dealing with puffiness or chronic fatigue, brain fog, skin issues, or you feel like your body is just holding on to fluid and like inflammation that it can't get rid of, this episode is going to be very, very beneficial for you. So let's get into it. I'm kind of taking the reins, and Lacey and Kira are going to have lots to add in, I'm sure, but I'm
am
excited
pumped.
to go in. I know. So
No
am
pun
I.
intended. I got it.
Except the lymphatic system doesn't have
Doesn't
a pump.
have a pump.
And we're going to talk all about that. So we'll start off with talking about what the lymphatic system is, because that is obviously very, very important. And I think a lot of us got this surface level explanation of the lymphatic system when we were in school, or it's just like this buzzword, I guess, that we sometimes hear about it. And we typically don't, at least for me, actually understand what it is and what it is doing. So we're going to try to really paint the picture. So basically, your lymphatic system is essentially like a second circulatory system that is running alongside your blood vessels. So it's a huge network of vessels, nodes, organs that have a couple major jobs. So it balances fluid in your body. It's a very key player in your immune system. And essentially, it's your body's like built-in waste removal system. So it's a lot of the times we'll look at it kind of as your body's sanitation department, essentially. So how it works is
This episode of The Wellness Effect is brought to you by Lifestyle You. If you're listening to this podcast and thinking, okay, this sounds like me, whether it's low energy, hormone imbalances, stubborn symptoms, or you just feel like you've tried everything, Lifestyle You is our root cause coaching program designed to help you actually connect the dots.
We use functional nutrition, personalized support, and functional lab testing to figure out why your body is doing what it's doing, instead of just guessing or slapping a Band-Aid on symptoms.
And because you're a listener of The Wellness Effect, when you use the code Wellness Effect, you'll receive a free functional lab when you join the program. If this episode is resonating with you, make sure to share it with a friend, subscribe to the podcast, and check out the show notes to learn more about Lifestyle You and how to apply. We know how our blood kind of obviously travels throughout our body. It delivers nutrients and it delivers oxygen to cells. Well, basically, as this happens, is fluid almost leaks out of the blood vessels and into the space around your cells. And we call this the interstitial fluid. Basically, like that leftover fluid, and most of it, it's going to get back, like reabsorbed back into the bloodstream, but a portion of it doesn't. And that is, once again, that leftover fluid, and that's going to contain proteins, lipids, cellular waste, toxins, immune cells, and that gets picked up by our lymphatic system. And once it enters our vessels, we call it lymph. So the vessels are what kind of move it around throughout the body, and then that fluid is the lymph. Make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. Question. So the liquid that gets out of the blood into the vessels that turns into lymph, that's all on purpose, right? Like they're filtering what is good and what is bad, and the bad goes into the lymph to get removed from us, correct?
Even the good goes into the lymph. Like
Okay.
it's not only bad stuff in the lymph, but yes, it is all purposeful and intentional, and we want it to be doing that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and like I think when you're sick, your body like literally dumps those like the things that gets killed off when you're sick get dumped straight into your lymph, right? That's why your lymph nodes get like swollen. It's because they're literally like working
Yeah.
overtime.
Overtime.
Yeah, and so like the fluid will go towards our lymph nodes, and that's where it like fights infection. So that's why those get inflamed when we are sick or fighting something off.
Cool.
Yeah, super cool. So the lymph, once again, it travels through these network of vessels, starting with like tiny lymphatic capillaries that actually are more permeable than like our blood capillaries. So they can capture like larger molecules. Yeah. And then those capillaries feed into larger lymphatic vessels, which run throughout our body, our skin, our fat tissue, our brain, our organs. And something that is really interesting when talking about blood is that there's actually like double the amount of lymphatic fluid in our body than there is blood, which is,
What?
yeah, I know. Isn't that
I wonder how
wild?
much it is. Like how much
I think
of our
it's
body.
like 8 to 12 liters of like lymph fluid, and then it's like 4
Cool.
liters of blood.
Like how fucking cool is that?
It's so like, this is like the coolest. It's actually so cool. I'm found a new thing to be obsessed with, and I hope this makes
We're
everyone obsessed with it.
the lymphatic system.
So cool. Okay, so now something that is really important is our lymphatic vessels have one-way valves. And this, like, I'm just nerding out. I find this so cool once again. So the fluid's only going to move in one direction towards the heart. And eventually it's all going to drain back into your bloodstream through two main ducts. So we have our right lymphatic duct, and that's going to drain the right upper side of our body. And then we have the thoracic duct, which is the big one, and that is going to drain everything else. So that has a lot more it's taking on, but that's just kind of how it's set up. And both of those empty into our veins just below our collarbone. So that's why that activation in that collarbone area is so important. We'll talk about it. And then the lymph gets filtered, processed, and returned to our circulatory system. So something that I found that I wanted to mention, just with like the fact that it only goes one way, is that one of the like things that we do in terms of helping our lymph move throughout our body is like rebounding or jumping. And it's interesting because you'd think that like when you're going down that the lymph would kind of like go up and then go down, right? But it actually like it only can go up. So when we're doing things like jumping or rebounding or dry brushing or walking, it's only moving towards the heart. It's not going to move away. So I say up, but like if it's at our neck, it's going to go down, right? So kind of cool. Now, the next thing is the just kind of like the lymph node component of it. So we have approximately, and this is also mind blowing because I would say we have like 6, but we have approximately 800 lymph nodes in our body from our neck down to our armpits.
I was not expecting that.
I know.
It's like
Abdomen,
100?
behind your knees. And so they're little like bean like structures. And when we think of them, we think of the lymph nodes in like our neck and our armpits. And so those are what filter the lymph. They trap pathogens, cellular debris, like even cancer cells, and they're packed with immune cells. So getting into the thick of it a little bit here, but like lymphocytes, which are B and T cells, and those are the ones like responsible for recognizing and fighting threats. So a lot of immune battles happen like inside those lymph nodes, which is why we see them get swollen when we're fighting something off. And then beyond the lymph nodes, and we're almost through kind of the thick of what is going on here, is the lymphatic organs. So this is something I think a lot of people don't realize as well. And a lot of the times these organs I'm going to mention are what get labeled as not necessary by like the medical system. So we have like our spleen, which filters our blood, produces white blood cells. We have our thymus, and that's where T cells mature. Our tonsils, which filter germs entering through like our nose and our mouth. And then our bone marrow, which is also responsible for producing immune cells. And so this one, once again, is interesting because you hear so often, I don't think it happens as much anymore. And I was even going to have it done when I would get strep throat all the time, but just getting our tonsils removed because you are constantly getting strep throat, which now we know that is a symptom of something going on, whether in our gut or chronic inflammation or probably with our lymphatic system. We take that out. We don't have that like first line of defense there. So really interesting.
I had a client once who chronically got strep throat. I was like just looking through some old wins actually yesterday because I'm just having withdrawals. And the win that she sent me was like she got strep throat for the first time after we'd worked together through a gut protocol. And she's like, I felt it in one side. I started focusing on my lymphatic system, like supporting it in all the ways that Jensen's going to tell us at the end of this podcast to support it, doing all the things. She's like, it didn't ever go to my second lymph node or like the second side of her throat or second tonsil, I guess, in the back. And she would always like get so infected, have to go on antibiotics, get a yeast infection. Like that's what strep throat became for her. And it was so triggering. And it became this like month-long battle because then you have a yeast infection and so for her to just literally like clean up her gut and then focus more on her lymphatic system when the infection was coming, she's like, I literally like saw it just hit that one side and then go away. And that's never happened before. Like
That's
she was
crazy.
so
That's
happy.
wild.
It was
So
I
wild.
wonder how if this plays into autoimmune diseases at all. Do you guys know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's just so like your immune system, once again, like we've talked about, is just attacking yourself. And so I would assume if we have that like flow of those toxins, then it would play a
Yeah,
huge
things are
role.
sludgy and just getting stuck and it's so bogged down with like daily toxins that it's
Yeah.
fighting and working on. It's not going to be able to help your immune system with like
Right.
what it actually should be
Regulating.
fighting.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And then Kira mentioned something just about like cleaning up the gut and that being a big impact as well. And that is such a huge component because there's also something called MALT. So it's mucosa associated lymphoid tissue. And that's found in your gut, your respiratory tract, and it acts as like a guard. But if our gut is like bogged down with parasites, yeast, infections, then basically that MALT is taking up those things and it's not able to do, like we talked about, the roles it's really doing because it's getting like backed up with these infections essentially. Last thing with this one is that, yeah, so our lymphatic system clears roughly 3 to 4 liters of fluid from our tissues every single day. So that doesn't mean, I know I said the 8 to 12, but it's clearing 3 to 4 liters every single day. And so when it's working well, we're not thinking about it. But when it's not, that's when we deal with like that, not only the inflammation, the puffiness, but also the fluid, the waste, and that inflammatory debris start to build up. And that's when we notice symptoms, and what that looks like is different for everyone. And we'll talk about that. Next, I just want to transition into why the lymphatic system matters for how you feel. So once we kind of understand what it does, then I think it's easier to transition into this. And so, like I said, it definitely doesn't get the attention it deserves in terms of like healing process. We spend so much time talking about like lymph nodes, and most people, once again, we've talked about it already, are like familiar when we have that like swollen lymph when we're sick. But what we don't talk about enough, and this is something that I really learned, is like the vessels. And so they're everywhere in our body, like our toes. The only place they aren't is like our fingernails, essentially. So seriously, everywhere in our body. They sit closer to the surface of the skin, but there's also like deeper vessels running alongside our muscles and our fascia that do a lot of the heavy lifting as well. And like we kind of alluded to at the beginning of the podcast, there is no pump. And so our heart is going to continuously pump blood throughout our body, but our lymphatic system is entirely passive. There's no pump. And the only way that we can move lymph through our body is through our own body's movement, specifically muscle contractions. And so, when our muscles move, they squeeze lymphatic vessels, pushing fluid in that, once again, one-way valve. And we're going to talk about different ways that we can kind of move. But the point we really need to get across, and we'll talk a lot about this, is just the importance of movement when it comes to lymphatic fluid. So just to connect it and like give you an idea is like, think about when you're sitting at a desk all day, which most of us are. We are a very, very sedentary society, and we think that working out for an hour kind of checks off that movement box. But really what's happening is when we are sedentary outside of that, we're not moving enough, we're not drinking enough water. By the end of the day, you start to notice it. Like your ankles feel puffy. If you've been flying, your rings feel tighter. You feel maybe a little more bloated, sluggish, brain fog. And that's largely due to, a lot of the times, that stagnant lymph, that fluid, the waste, the inflammatory byproduct, the CO2, ammonia, cellular debris not being moved efficiently through our body. And then it builds up in our tissues and we start to feel it.
Yeah, that's actually
Questions?
so interesting. And I think it just is such a testament too. Like humans were supposed to freaking move, because it's not like our body had this
Yes.
flaw where it's like, oh, we forgot to put a pump for the lymphatic system. It's like,
Yes.
no. And even like breathing, right? Like deep breaths also are a huge part of it.
Huge.
And it's like we're just all such shallow breathers now. We never do any sort of breath work. And so it's just like such a testament to like we are supposed to be moving bodies, not just sitting on our
Sedentary.
butts all day.
Yeah, and it's so true. Like we really do, and I think we're all guilty of this. It's like, okay, I went to the gym, like I can check off like my movement box for the day, but like if you are really, really struggling to get like over 6,000 steps a day, that is something you need to change in your like lifestyle, because this isn't just like about inflammation, it's about like fighting off disease that can cause cancer long term. Like it is serious stuff. So,
And even just like the level of toxins that we're all exposed to now, like there's so much fear of like, get everything out of your house and don't eat that and don't eat this and you have to eat organic and get an air filter. And it's like, yes, okay. But
Stay tuned for
also-
next week's episode.
Yeah, stay tuned for next week's
It's on
cliffhanger.
Tox items, I think.
Yeah. But like there are such powerful ways you can support your body. And it's like if you're not really like pulling the lever of movement and breath, then like, it's easy to hyperfixate on like, what can I buy? What low tox swap can I make? But it's like, have you taken a walk lately?
well, even we think so much about our liver and like our kidneys
Mhm.
for those jobs of like detox, but our liver and kidney can be functioning perfectly fine. But if our lymph isn't moving, our lymphatic system isn't moving that waste throughout our body, then it doesn't really mean anything. So, and then, okay, so a little bit about just like how it's also moving good stuff, which is another important thing. So it's really critical for fat absorption. Specialized vessels in the small intestine absorb those dietary fats and the fat soluble vitamins. So that's A, D, E, and K, and then transport them into the lymphatic system before they reach your bloodstream. So the health, once again, of your lymphatic system is directly connected to how well we are absorbing those nutrients, which I found very, very interesting.
Yeah,
There's
that's so
also,
cool.
once again, the mold and the toxin connection. So obviously we talk a lot about just toxins like we just were a couple seconds ago. And when our body is exposed to those environmental toxins, mold, or just that regular like metabolic waste that our cells are producing every day, the lymphatic system is one of the primary clearance pathways. And so once again, we can be doing all of the stuff to support our liver and our kidneys and reducing toxic products. But if we're not moving, then we're going to have some inflammation. And something I just a little bit, so lymph is like also, it's like a sticky fluid, which I find interesting as well, because you can kind of picture it. So it's not so much like the consistency of like gel and it's not water. It should be somewhere in between. We'll talk about this, but when we're like dehydrated, it's going to become a little bit more sticky and sludgy. And that's when things aren't going to move around and be more stagnant. And that is a breeding ground for inflammation. And what we're also going to talk about is the brain. So Kira has mentioned this a couple times, I feel like, is the glymphatic system. I won't take too long going over this, but I find this so interesting. Up until 2012, we didn't even realize that the brain has its own lymphatic system. Isn't that wild? Like literally 15 years ago.
So crazy.
Then we discovered what's called the glymphatic system. So that's what like drains from your brain, essentially. So it's our brain's own lymphatic system, if you will. Now, throughout the day, our brain is really obviously metabolically active. So it's processing, it's thinking, it's regulating, it's producing waste, inflammatory molecules, those metabolic byproducts, proteins, and things essentially that can also be associated with like Alzheimer's. And so during the day, that waste builds up in the cerebral spinal fluid around your brain. And then at night, when you go to sleep, this is what is really cool. Basically, our circadian rhythm, so go listen to the circadian rhythm episode, activates a system that creates more space in the brain. So our cells almost shrink slightly. And then that fluid rushes through and essentially flushes the accumulated waste out of the brain. So cool. So if you wake up with like brain fog after a poor night's sleep, or even like dark circles, puffy eyes, you're just noticing you're like holding on to more water, that is because that glymphatic system, especially because it gets turned on during deep sleep, didn't have a chance to
And I just think it's
get
always
turned
so
on.
important, like your brain's drainage of toxins was what we're talking about here. Like, what could literally be more important than that? Like, it's
Well, yeah. And there's science to back up like it is associated with like Alzheimer's and those, I guess, like neurodegenerative diseases.
Whoops.
So wait, did you say that only happens in deep sleep?
I think it's mostly in deep sleep. Like you need to go into deep sleep. And I know I didn't read anything about this, but I feel like I've heard Kira say like you kind of need to be asleep by like 10 p.m. or something.
Yeah, there's something about like the cleanup. So you just get more deep sleep. So if you go to bed late, you're just like not going to get as much deep sleep is pretty much the gist. Because you get the most deep sleep between 10 and 2 a.m.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Okay. So now we're going to talk about what it looks like if your lymphatic system is sluggish and things you can kind of do a little bit of an assessment on yourself. So some of the most common signs of lymphatic congestion include, so I think the most obvious one is swelling and puffiness. So, but not only in the face, like in your arms, in your legs, ankles. So a good way to test this, like if you're someone that like wears socks or wears tight pants and it leaves a line, or you press on your skin and it like leaves an indent, then it's most likely fluid that isn't properly draining, right? Chronic fatigue, brain fog, both big ones. Frequent infections, like getting sick often, feeling stiff and like poor recovery, those swollen, tender lymph nodes. Any skin issue, it's not always going to be like singular. It's always your lymphatic system, but it can play a huge role in improving that. Bloating and digestive issues, because those lymphatic vessels in your gut are impaired. Unexplained weight gain, water retention. I actually had a couple more that I wrote down.
I think even like anxiety and like
Totally.
I guess that's kind of tied to like the brain fog feeling. But if you just feel like, I don't know why, but I have this like anxious feeling, like when I get that and I'm like, okay, I don't really have anything to feel anxious about, I literally do the big 6, and like 9 times out of 10, I'm like, oh, that was nice. I needed that.
It actually, you get such a good like release from it. Cellulite, another big one. So if you have cellulite, that is lymph essentially being trapped in that specific area. Are some people more genetically predisposed to cellulite? Yes. Is there a solution to cellulite? Yes. And it's not only like sometimes it can be actual fat too, but that compared with like poor lymphatic drainage, which
Well, it's something about like the more fat you have, then that it's like pushed to the surface. So that's why you can see the cellulite and like the lymph stagnant more because the fat is like it's almost like creating tightness on your skin, I think, which is why just isn't that right?
well,
Is that
yeah, and it's like the texture is like literally that like sluggish fluid is there, and that's what creates that like bumpy line. And then yeah, the fat. And I don't know this, I have no science to back this up, but I'm assuming if we are obese and like extremely overweight and are carrying a lot of extra body fat, that also probably does impair lymphatic drainage because it's going to get in the way of that like fascia and muscle moving the lymph. Once again, I don't know that for sure, but that's just like an
well, yeah, it
assumption.
just makes sense. If you're obese, you probably have stagnant lymph.
Yeah. And then varicose veins, which I find interesting because I think that's one of those things where we're told the only solution to it is lasers, but there's a huge association with that. And then allergies is another big one as well. Okay, now let's go into how to support our lymphatic system. So we're moving at a pretty good pace right now, but how I would say it's kind of like movement, breath and hydration are the three main things, but there's different ways that we can kind of incorporate all of those things. So we'll start with movement. Like I said, movement and our muscles are the main driver of lymphatic flow because once again, we don't have a physical pump and our muscles are the pump. So every time you contract a muscle, you are squeezing lymph through those vessels. And that's why that sedentary lifestyle is so detrimental to inflammation, chronic illness, lymphatic congestion. I think a good like baseline to recommend is like we want to aim for like 7 to 8,000 steps per day and not doing it all at one time. So we talk about how important going for a walk after our meals are for blood sugar, circadian rhythm, but that is also, if you structure your movement around meals, a good way to ensure that you are moving multiple times throughout the day and you're not getting those 8,000 steps all within like just 40 minutes on the treadmill. And then a couple other things that kind of fall into the movement category. So rebounding is really, really great for our lymph and something I really want to get. It's just like a little rebounder, which is essentially a mini trampoline for those that don't know. Swimming and like treading water is also really, really good. So when I was reading about this or listening about it, basically like when we swim, the water is like pulling on, we can't see it visually, but it's like pulling on our skin. And that's really, really beneficial for moving lymph, which is cool.
That's so cool.
Summer's coming. And then those are two of them. And then just, yeah, aerobic exercise in general. Yoga is another great one, whatever it might be,
And
but we
even
just want to think about movement.
even just this is what I've read about walking. I'm just like on a little walking whatever right now. I'm obsessed with walking. But just your foot hitting the ground every time you take a step is so good for your lymphatic system. Like that alone is going to be really helpful.
I read
Yeah.
something sometime though that it was like in order, and I can't remember what it was comparing it to, but it's like you kind of have to walk for like 2 hours to get the same. I can't remember. Never mind.
I think you could get what you would get from like a long walk in like a shorter bout of like rebounding. This is a good time to talk and like about the vibration plates, which I think are good, but I'm not completely sold on them because a lot of people think like I did this for like 10 minutes, I'm good for the day, but you're not actually like contracting those muscles. So like you're shaking, but your body's just like stagnant. So you're not having that actual like physical movement. So I think it's still a good tool, but I don't think it necessarily compares to like rebounding where you're like moving up and down.
And you'd also be getting like the breath activation when you're jumping on a trampoline or walking. Your breath would naturally like
No, you guys, those fucking jiggle boards are actually crazy. No, because I get it's definitely different than like jumping, but your muscles are contracted the whole entire time that you're on there. And when I
Oh, they are.
recorded that
Okay.
reel that I did, I was sweating by the like, no, it's more work than you think it is. It's not like you're just standing there and you're jiggling.
Okay, that makes sense. I heard on like a podcast that there's not as much. So I'm like, I almost think if they're the same price, like you could probably, if you have the space for a rebounder might be more
Yeah, I think it
effective.
would. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but
That's what the data says, but we're not big data people over
we're
here.
not.
So
We're vibes.
we're all based on the vibes. Lacey was sweating, so
It was
um
actually crazy.
I know I still
But
do want one.
yeah, no, they're probably similar. It's just a tool. It's just a tool. It doesn't mean you don't get to walk.
Yeah, and even like something that I try to do on my walks, and like you'll look crazy if you're in a downtown populated area, but even just like kind of like swinging your arms around, and like something I've been thinking about more is like you can just like flex your muscles, and that alone is going to help with that. Like you don't need to be working out to do that, but just kind of like tensing and releasing is something that can be really beneficial as well. So even like thinking
Yeah.
about doing that when you're just like sitting at your desk during the day. Next thing is the diaphragmatic breathing. So, our breath is huge, one of the most powerful tools for moving lymph. If we are in fight or flight, our lymph is not going to move. If we are breathing shallow, our lymph is not going to move, especially if you're congested in like the lower half of the body. And the reason why is because what happens when we are breathing through our stomach. So, if you're listening to this, you can practice it right now. When we breathe, a lot of the times we'll feel like our chest move, but we want to be expanding in our midsection and our belly. And that's signaling that the diaphragm is essentially pushing downward. And that's going to create a pressure differential between an area called the cisterna chyli, which is like a reservoir of lymph in your abdomen and your blood supply. So that pressure change pumps lymph into the vessels and back into circulation. So really, really important. Even just once again, when you're sitting at your desk, when you're driving, trying to just do like 2 to 3 of those diaphragmatic breaths. And it's free, takes 30 seconds, super easy. One more I wanted to talk about, and then you guys can maybe even just say a couple that you can think of as well, is red light therapy. So I found this interesting. Obviously, red light therapy is beneficial for so many things. Keep in mind, red light therapy can literally be, so once again, if you do your walk after breakfast and after dinner, before dinner, you're going to be getting free red light therapy from the sun when it's at lower levels in the sky. But essentially, what that does is it improves blood flow to tissues and actually interacts with like the mitochondria in your cell, charges them up, increases energy production. Better cellular energy means better cellular function, which includes the function of your lymphatic vessels. So, very important even for lymphatic flow, that circadian rhythm once again. So, yeah, what else do you guys think of when you think of helping? I have quite a few here, but what do you think of when you think about telling people to improve their lymphatic system?
I like to do something called shake the tree that I learned about recently. So after I do my big six in the morning. Oh, did we talk about that?
We haven't. So, if you want to go through big six.
Okay. So I do the big six, which is there's six. Some people, I saw someone post recently that's like the specific seven. They're trying to make specific seven a thing, which is cute.
Yeah, I think also with this one, everyone's
Talking about it.
not everyone's talking about it, but like everyone's approach is so different. Like there's not, it
Right.
depends like which one. So this is, I think we all do the same approach, but you might
Yeah.
listen to another person. They might
Yeah,
do it
because
slightly
a guy
different.
like started the big six, which I've been called out.
Pain
Credit to
free.
Dr.
What's his?
I'm like, okay,
Yeah, it's like
sorry.
pain free doc or something on YouTube. But so basically, there's these 6 or 7 points, which are the bigger lymph nodes that Jensen was telling us about earlier. So there's one right on your collarbone area, like kind of behind your ears and into your throat, and then in your
Armpits?
armpit. And then the specific 7 girl does the one like kind of on top of your armpit. So like I just do like a C shape. I always have. So I hit both of those. So whatever. In between your boobies, as me and Ellie like to say, and then like on your groin, hips, and like behind your knees. So you just kind of pump and move stuff around. Like you massage it a little to wake it up, pump it, and like Jensen said, your lymphatic system's right under your skin. You do not have to do this hard.
Like super
when
gentle.
Yes. When I first started, I'm like, oh, you gotta freaking like get in there. But you can literally just like lightly tap it. So I do that.
Well, and it can actually be, just sorry to cut you off, Kira, one thing that I think is important to hear, because I was the same way, and I even still, I like find myself like rubbing so hard, but that can actually be worse for you because there's such like sensitive like vessels and nodes, and that's where all of the immune action is happening. And so if you're like puncturing these like vessels and like nodes, it can actually be like a downside. So you want to go super gentle.
So gentle.
Yeah. And in those areas, there's just like a huge amount of them. So if you like look at the body when only the lymphatic system is lit up, there's just like hundreds in those areas, which is why that's where you're going to kind of get the most bang for your buck when you're doing those.
Yeah, and it's cool. I remember, well, like if you look at where they really are like points that normally, like caveman days, you would be moving. Like you'd be bending over at the hip to pick stuff up. You'd be squatting down on your knees. You'd be turning you'd be lifting, like getting your armpit ones. You'd be turning your head. If you're naturally just like moving as a human is supposed to, you're going to really be hitting all of these spots, but we just don't do that anymore. So that's kind of how the big 6 came to be. 6, 7, whatever. 6, 7.
6, 7. Oh my God.
Or as Maddox says,
embraced
41.
I love Maddox.
Oh my God, so cute. Okay, so then shaking the tree, because I do not have a vibration plate. Jiggle board. I like to say jiggle board. So you basically just like kind of go on your tiptoes, but not like fully, just so you're kind of like you have that spring action in your toes, and then like let your arms go really loose. Then you just like, as you're kind of jiggling yourself up and down, you like turn side to side and let your arms kind of like smack your body, and you just like literally pretend you're a tree like shaking in the wind and the breeze. And that's like, the longer you can do it for, the better. I like do it for like 5 minutes in front of my red light in the morning.
I do that after dry brushing too, and I feel like and it's good to do these things in the morning, because when we're like sleeping, well, it's good to also do them at the end of the day if you work a desk job, but when we're sleeping, like that's when our lymph kind of we're resting, right? And that's not a bad thing, but if you wake up and you feel puffy, that's such a good thing to implement. And like Kira said, like that's completely free. You don't need to buy a rebounder, a jiggle board, a dry brush, even. Like that is completely at your fingertips, and doesn't need to take that long to do it. Lace, what do you do for lymphatic drainage?
Pretty much do the big 6 and my jiggle board, but I'm excited for our catch-up episode and when we're going to talk about routines, because man, having that sauna, I'm just so dialed in every category of my whole entire life now. Like, it's just insane how many things I've been able to habit stack to that. But yeah, I usually go on my jiggle board, then I go into the sauna, and then I do the big 6 while I'm in the sauna, and then I stretch, and then I go out and I ground myself, and
so nice.
Do breath work, and we meditate. It's great.
I actually did want to say this because obviously Lacey has a sauna, so it's top of mind. But if you even if you are in the shower, the sauna alone can help because it helps with that blood flow. But what's really great is like cold hot therapy. So if you like turn the shower super cold and then hot, that change in temperature helps with the constriction and then dilation of not only your blood vessels, which is going to increase blood flow, but also your lymphatic vessels, which is interesting. Yeah.
I think I forgot about that.
Place for some
so cool
alternating. And then a couple other, I'm going to talk about hydration after this. So everyone stay tuned because we're going to talk about specific minerals and herbs. But the only other couple things, so dry brushing is great. Just a natural bristle on dry skin. Do the big 6 activation before. Long, gentle strokes towards the heart. It doesn't need to be painful. If you do notice you get itchy after, probably a sign that you need it even more. And that's going to stimulate more of those like superficial vessels. And then something also just like, and I feel like we all kind of do this, is especially around these like clavicle areas, because that's where everything kind of goes to. even just like throughout the day, like gently touching those, I feel like is such a good way to just like help with that. And I just find myself doing it all the time. Like I watch videos on here and you can just see I'm constantly like,
Well, and even it's like a nice way to check in with your body, like what's going, and if you start to like get used to how your lymph nodes feel, and then you'll notice, are they tender? Are they swollen? And like, what does that mean? It's this, remember, it's this little
Well,
signal,
and I
little
think I
text
mentioned this on
message.
a previous topic or episode. Wow. But
Ooh.
just take the 10 minutes to memorize the big six. Like
Yes.
literally do it, because as soon as I did that, then you just start doing it so much more. And you just do it in the shower. You do it when you're bored. You do it when you're thinking about it. You do it when you're on a call. Like you just always start doing it, but you have to learn what they are. So just
Know
like
what
take the
they
10
are.
minutes, rehearse a couple times, go through it. And it's just so beneficial.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like Ellie knows what they are. So you can memorize them too.
Well, I never knew what they were for so long, and then I made a reel about it like a year ago, and so I had to do it like 8 times in a row, and I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I get it now.
I
But
get it.
and then you just
then
kind of
once
do
you
it every time you
understand
think
it.
of it, because it literally takes 2 minutes, and it's so beneficial. So especially if you're someone who's struggled to stay consistent with like dry brushing or things like that, just get the big 6 bare minimum.
And even like
Mhm.
before you go for a walk, if you don't want to dry brush, if you don't want to get a jiggle board, if you don't whatever, you don't you don't get a choice in the walking. If you are
No,
listening to
if
this
you want to or
podcast, you
not,
should be
it's
walking.
kind of like a non-negotiable.
Yeah. So just do it before you take a walk. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
easy peasy.
Or even like before you work out.
yeah.
Anytime, literally.
Literally.
We're not picky, you guys. Just like get her done.
You can do it whenever you want. Do it
And
right
then-
now. Like pause.
Yeah.
Do it
Pause
right now.
this and do it. Be safe if you're in the car. But the only other thing I had here was the lymphatic massage. So like going and getting a lymphatic massage, and super specialized technique. Once again, it's like really light pressure and rhythmic pressure to encourage that lymph flow. So I've never gotten one, but I've heard really amazing things. You just don't expect a deep tissue massage because that's not what we want. Oh, castor oil packs, wearing loose clothing. So not wearing stuff that is going to like really restrict around, especially like
Yes.
our waistband, our bra.
I wanted to talk, I always forget about that, but like even make sure your pajamas, like if you're going to bed with tight pajamas around your waist, like please stop doing that. If you're wearing your bra to bed, please stop doing that.
Well, and that's why they say that is a reason that women get so much breast cancer, is because we wear that tight bra right where our lymphs are all day
Yes.
and all night, and then they are just so much more likely to get clogged up, and then you've got a whole bunch of toxins sitting right there, and then guess what is going to happen? You're going to get breast cancer. But remember, mom was always so like, she was always just so on it without us even knowing. Like I remember in literally high school, she's like, don't wear your bra, take your bra off, like you can't wear that,
I know,
it's so
and like
tight.
in high school, I'd like wear my sports bra to bed. Like it was so
Yes.
weird. Like that sounds like hell. And even so, like Leah, she's from Lymph Love Club. That's a great account to follow her. I'm like obsessed with her posts. But she was just like, just why not just don't wear a bra? And now it's like when I'm at home and I don't need to wear a bra, like I'm not wearing a bra
Oh, yeah,
because there's
me
no
either.
need to wear a bra. Like it's crazy.
And it's the best feeling. Like
Free
once
the
I had
tits.
Jake, I'm like leaking, you leak a lot in the beginning, or I did anyway, just as your milk supplies, like getting used to your baby and like figuring everything out. And like as soon as I stopped, I'm just like, I just wear a crop top with no bra all day, and my boob's just like right there. Right.
I know. It's so freeing. Okay, I'll quickly do a little bit of a blurb on like dehydration, because this is, once again, I think like like even if we're moving and we're not, that fluid isn't able to flow, then the movement does nothing. And so when we're dehydrated, especially at a cellular level, but even if we're just not drinking enough fluids in general, lymph becomes thicker, it's harder to move. A good saying I heard is like thinking about trying to move honey through a straw versus like water or like a gel through a straw. So we want to get that typical like 2.5 to 3 liters of mineralized water per day. Getting an HTMA done can be really, really beneficial because things like sodium and potassium play a huge role in our ability to move. Lymph beyond hydration Antioxidant rich foods are really, really important. So like leafy greens, berries, citrus, they support immune function. They reduce that inflammatory burden on your lymphatic system. Cruciferous vegetables, they're going to help support liver detoxification, which is going to work hand in hand with the lymphatic drainage. You need both of them functioning optimally. If you have digestive sensitivities, SIBO, be mindful and stick to what you tolerate well and work with a practitioner to get to the bottom of those. Hydrating foods even can be really beneficial. Omega-3 fatty acids, so like from fish, flax seeds, chia seeds, they're anti-inflammatory and also support the structural integrity of lymphatic vessels. Same thing goes with like protein. Herbal teas, dandelion root tea, nettle tea, both very, very well known and well liked between all three of us, and known for their like detoxifying and while also being like hydrating, and they can help reduce water retention, support drainage. And then some more herbs like red clover, there's like herbal tinctures you can get as well. And that's basically it in terms of extra things. So move your body, practice breathing through your belly, dry brushing before your next shower, the big six activation, even just starting with like activation in your clavicle region. I don't think we talked about legs up on the wall. That's another really good one, especially if we're prone to that lower body swelling, especially after like flights or long car rides, getting outside, sunrise, sunset, drink enough water, and lots of sleep.
Love it.
Boom.
That was
Anything
amazing.
else you guys have any questions about or want to talk about?
No, not really. But if you feel puffy and inflamed, this is pretty much the best place to start. So,
or like if you get like post-nasal drip and always have like a stuffy nose, that's another big one.
I'm like over here being like, I think I need to work on my lymphatic system a little bit right now.
Seriously. And even I've been like breaking out a little bit on my jawline. And it's just like, I just know, like I haven't been putting effort into that. So it's pretty freaking fascinating and a huge, huge component of overall long-term health, I'd say. It's obviously important on like an individual healing journey, but I really think where the benefit comes from is like preventing disease, both like mental, like neurodegenerative, but also like physical. Like lymphedema is another big one we see with like poor lymphatic circulation. So it's very important, everybody. And I hope you got some actionable steps from this. And if you have any questions, you know where to find us. Maybe we'll post a couple links of good rebounder, jiggle board. Maybe Kira will post her jiggle board walking pad that she wants.
I was going to say Kira should do a reel of the shaking tree because I'm like, if you don't, I'm going to.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, and then maybe we'll post a good video about the big six that we use a lot.
And we do have a dry brushing resource where Kira does like a live walkthrough of a dry brushing session with you. So we can link that in the show notes as well for you guys if you're curious about starting your dry brushing journey. And I think you do big six at the start of that, to be honest.
Oh,
I do.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. We'll put that in the show notes. And if you guys want to do an HTMA, then
you heard
the ad.
Yeah. Join the root cause reset method.
Okay.
Woo-hoo!
If
Thanks
you feel
so
called
much
to doing
for
an HTMA after you listen to
listening.
this podcast, please make sure to release CJ's or Kira, and you can do an HTMA any day you like of the week.
That's pretty good too.
I just didn't know what else to say.
Like, subscribe, give us feedback, download, and we'll see you next Wednesday, everybody.
Touch you there.
See you
I'll
next
see you on another
Wednesday.
time.
Thanks for tuning in to The Wellness Effect. We're so grateful to be part of your wellness journey. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and follow us on Instagram. We'll put all of our handles in the show notes. If you have questions or ideas, slide into our DMs or send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep creating your own wellness effect.